At the United Methodist General Conference, who leads the legislative committees, and should you be one of those leaders? Great question. In this video, I explain what the officer positions are in legislative committees and the considerations to evaluate when discerning whether you want to run for one of those offices. In my next video, I will outline how the officers of legislative committees get elected at General Conference. At the United Methodist General Conference, legislative committees have the following officers: chairperson, vice chairperson, secretary, and subcommittee chairpersons. The chairperson leads the legislative committee and facilitates the discussion of each piece of legislation assigned to the committee. To perform this office, familiarity with parliamentary procedure, in this case Robert's Rules of Order and the General Conference Rules of Order, is beneficial. It is particularly helpful if that familiarity comes from previous experience chairing a committee of some kind. The chairperson also speaks to the General Conference plenary before the plenary debates one of the petitions handled in their committee, reporting on the recommendation the committee made to support or not support the petition. The vice chairperson assists the chair and steps in to preside if the chair is temporarily unable to lead. The secretary records the actions taken on each petition so that they can be printed in the Daily Christian Advocate for final action by the whole General Conference. If a legislative committee has a considerable number of petitions to deal with, it may divide into subcommittees, with each one more closely considering a subset of petitions. The subcommittee chairperson facilitates that work. The role of the chairperson in particular is a powerful one at General Conference. It is up to the chairperson, in consultation with the other committee officers, to determine the order in which legislation assigned to the committee will be considered. According to the Book of Discipline, all petitions submitted to General Conference shall receive a vote in a legislative committee. However, the chairperson can arrange the order so that some petitions come early and get more time for debate, while other petitions are rushed through right before the deadline. While presiding, the chairperson also decides who to call on to make speeches and amendments. This can affect what voices are heard in the process and how much perfecting by amendment a petition goes through. The subcommittee chairperson plays the same role at the subcommittee level. The vice chair offers counsel and support for the chairperson, such as tracking how many speeches for and against a petition have been made, so that the chairperson can determine who else to call on to speak and when to move to a vote. If the chair becomes ill or has an emergency or otherwise steps down from presiding over the committee, the vice chairperson leads the legislative committee. The secretary tracks and records votes on each petition and the amendments that are approved, submits the proper paperwork to the General Conference Petitions Secretary by the daily deadline, and receives and submits any minority reports from committee members. The Secretary frequently reads aloud a proposed amendment to the committee before the chairperson takes a vote on the amendment. The Secretary also counsels and supports the chairperson, perhaps by noting the time remaining in the day's session or reminding the chair of how many petitions still need to be acted on. When I was a legislative committee secretary, the chairperson had a collaborative leadership style and appreciated my input on how to order the petitions to best get through them all in a timely manner. Does one of these roles sound like a match for your gifts and experience? You may be called to serve your legislative committee and General Conference as a committee officer, or you might not. In general, committee officers do not participate in the debate on petitions, but facilitate the debate by other members of the committee. If an officer wishes to offer an amendment or speak for or against a legislative item, they can do so by coming down from the dais to the body of the committee and requesting to be recognized to speak by the presider. This is meant to distinguish between their impartial work as an officer and their voice as a voting member of the committee. However, it is easy for that to still look like partiality on the part of the committee officer. If you are passionate about the legislation your committee will be working on, you may want to share your opinions. You may want to be free to speak in favor of or against the petitions, or offer amendments that you think will strengthen the petitions. In that case, you might best serve as a regular member of the committee so that you can use your voice freely. Next week, I will explain the election process for legislative committee officers. If you want to remind yourself of how the whole legislative process works at General Conference and what role legislative committees play in the process, I explained that in a video. The link is above. Please comment below with any questions or suggestions for other videos. You may also subscribe to get notices about my future videos. Thanks for watching.